Hello everybody and welcome back to F1 23 with me, Dan, and the Slothz team. A quick event popping up just here for our marketing department, I think, or media, something to do with that. But we got some spent some money and helped out our teammate a little bit. And we're going to spend some more money on him getting that analysis suite level 2. Here's our progress so far with the protection of next year's parts, running out of resource points there. Just a little bit too quickly for my liking. We may not actually get all of the points in time to cover everything for next year as we move on to practice. Also a note, this is the third race before the before season 2 actually. So we've got Las Vegas coming up on Thursday, and then next Tuesday, in 1 week's time, of course, we will have the season finale in Abu Dhabi. And then I'm going to try and add some new races in next season, which I haven't raced at either at all on this game or for a very long time in general, just to make things a little bit harder again, because I really don't want to be dominating at the front of the field with a teammate, much like I did at the end of F1 22 Season 4. Because they do get the odd race here and there where it just becomes completely boring, where there's just the two of you running around at the front and maybe one of you's faster than the other. I want to try and avoid that and at least have some kind of battle going on between me and someone else in the running order as well. Anyway, over to R&D once again for one final brush through here, try and get some more of those front wing and rear wing upgrades, and we'll try and pick up the rest later. We've got 2 more in development to try and cover as well. Right then, so unsurprisingly, another sprint race between now and the finale. As far as I'm aware, there isn't one that's going to happen in Abu Dhabi. If there is, then I will be truly disappointed in myself for somehow ending up with yet another one. Not that I don't like the sprint races, it's just that when there's so many of them and I have limited time to edit these videos, it does get a bit tedious. Anyway, don't forget to like this video, hit that subscribe button and turn on that notification bell as well, and we'll get underway with the first of the 2 grid orders today here in Brazil. And remember, there's only 2 races to go after this, so this is going to be for the championship basically. Anyway, on the front row we have the 2 Red Bulls of Max Verstappen. Alongside him is Sergio Perez, his teammate. Unsurprisingly, behind them we have Esteban Ocon and Carlos Sainz, George Russell and Lewis Hamilton, Pierre Gasly and Fernando Alonso, and rounding out the top 10 we have myself, Radiant Softs, and Charles Leclerc, Lando Norris and Alex Albon, Lance Stroll and Yuki Tsunoda, Kevin Magnussen and Valtteri Bottas, Oscar Piastri and Nico Hulkenberg, Jack Doohan and Joe Guan Yu, followed by Logan Sargent and Nick De Vries. Doohan, I think, compared to the last few races, may be struggling here. I don't think the car is perfectly suited to this track, and he's probably running some pretty worn components as well. So he's a little bit further back than he would like to be. And we're just going to have to do our best here. Remember, we're still running with no traction control. So I'm hoping that there's going to be no rain whatsoever, because this race can be pretty damn dodgy in the wet. Anyway, on to the race. Right then, as the red lights begin to appear, I've been playing around with some mic settings in between doing a bit of these recording sessions, so hopefully all that constant ringing, which I've been having trouble getting rid of, has now gone as we take a dive up the inside of Fernando Alonso and Pierre Gasly. Get around the outside into turn 2 there, just about do it, and we get to follow the 2 Mercedes of Lewis Hamilton and George Russell, who are side by side down the first straight. Looks as though the Alpine is still getting in the mix there. Esteban Ocon holding on to third. Russell out of sorts as we come up the hill. Remember, we are still running with no traction control, so we've got to be careful not to just completely destroy ourselves here as we take a dive up the inside of George Russell, and he's going to come under attack now for Fernando Alonso, who sets his opportunity here to go around the outside. Doesn't look as though it's going to work out for him. Let's go on board with our start. So there's Gasly and Alonso. Not the best start for Gasly, but we dive to the inside, late on the brakes, and hug the apex, nearly ramming into the back of a Mercedes, but definitely making some contact with Alonso there, which isn't ideal. Rejoining on lap 4. Charles Leclerc actually holds the fastest lap, but he's way back behind us at the back of this group. which should be about P9, I guess. Here comes Russell, much faster than us in the straight line. We've got a fight going on at the front as well between the two Red Bulls as Russell cruises by. Potentially looking at an Alpine podium here in this sprint race then, if he can hold on and hold off Carlos Sainz. But Carlos Sainz is on the medium, so he may have a chance. We're coming back at Russell. No chance down the inside there. And on lap 6, we rejoin, and my worst nightmare has come true. The heavens have opened, rather unsurprisingly, here in Brazil, and that's allowed Fernando Alonso to close up behind Charles Leclerc, also having a look, just waiting for his opportunity. And Fernando Alonso slips by, but we're going to go up the inside, maybe, and we're going to find a way past. Side by side, up the hill we go as we go on board with the helicopter cam around the outside at the top of the hill. And we're back into P7. We've still got 2 laps to defend from Fernando Alonso. And I can't see where George Russell is right now, so I think we're dropping a bit too far back to get DRS. Yeah, there he is. Maybe we're just about hanging on here, but as I say, with the traction control off, still getting used to driving in a less aggressive style with my right foot. It is increasingly difficult to keep up with the AI, but that's what we wanted. We wanted them on a higher difficulty. I do want to go to 110 at some point, and maybe even try and learn how to drive the racing line off, but that might be a little bit too much time required for that. As we see the Ferrari and Aston Martin go side by side with us into turn 1. The Ferrari's ahead. We've defended from Alonso up the inside of Charles Leclerc as well, just about hanging on there. Leclerc is going to come back at us down the straight. We've not got DRS, which means we're going to be under attack from Alonso again as we leave the door open. But small contact with Alonso. Up the inside we go once again, and I think we've managed to hold him off there, potentially with some contact, as Charles Leclerc goes flying off up the hill. Massive amounts of straight line speed in that Ferrari, which is something that we're not used to seeing. He did have DRS though. There is us coming back. And then we had absolutely stood no chance down the straight there. This is on board with Alonso all over the place on the approach to the braking zone. Small contact there as we tried to avoid Charles Leclerc, but it doesn't look as though too much damage was done other than to his pride. And he gets to watch Charles Leclerc open up the DRS and go cruising by, sees an opportunity to the outside, gets pushed onto the grass slightly, and then we managed to slide it up the inside. Probably not the most ideal of overtakes. Well, apparently he's dropped back, so potentially picked up some damage from one of us. As we conclude the final lap, yes, we're still out there on dry tyres, and it's absolutely chucking it down. This was an absolute nightmare for me. Quite possibly one of the hardest races I've ever done this weekend. Pretty much entirely due to the traction control being off. So we cross the line then. P8, we do pick up a point. Charles Leclerc picks up driver of the day because he did start quite far down the order. And those are the race results for the sprint race. But stick around because we've got the main event coming up in just a second. And as if the rain at the end of the sprint was not nightmare fuel enough for me, the rain has come down even heavier now in Brazil, streaking across the screen in truly ridiculous fashion. And for a person that hasn't really played at all with the traction control off since F1 2021, and I think this was the last race we actually bothered to leave it on for, or off for, this is horrific. Anyway, don't forget to like this video, hit that subscribe button, and turn on that notification bell so you get to see me suffer from more and more of these races, which just seem to chuck rain at me left, right, and centre, which I struggle with greatly, especially when I have no traction. Onto the starting grid order then, I suppose, for the Brazilian Grand Prix. The rain has suddenly disappeared somehow, but on the front row is Max Verstappen, but he's joined by Esteban Ocon, who was able to climb up ahead of Sergio Perez at the end of the sprint race. Good job to him. Behind them on the grid, we have Sergio Perez and Carlos Sainz, Lewis Hamilton and George Russell, Charles Leclerc and Radiant Slothz, Fernando Alonso and Lando Norris breaks into the top 10. Then we have Pierre Gasly and Yuki Tsunoda, Lance Stroll and Alex Albon, Kevin Magnussen and Valtteri Bottas, Oscar Piastri and Nico Hulkenberg, followed by Nick de Vries, Jack Doohan, and finally it's Joe Guan Yu and Logan Sargent. So as I say, it's raining, which is already bad enough, but we have no traction control, and somehow we've got to try and make it for a 35% distance race in these conditions. I will put it on the record now, this was the hardest race that I've ever done in my entire F1 career, ever. So then let the nightmare begin as we pull away here in Brazil. Esteban Ocon on the front row. Never thought I'd ever say that. As we come down towards turn 1, we're going to try go down the middle this time. We were thinking about going up the inside. We've dropped a place to Fernando Alonso as he tries to challenge George Russell into turn 1. Everyone boxing up behind each other there, as I think someone near the front may have taken a pretty bad line. It may have been Carlos Sainz and Charles Leclerc fighting away, because Leclerc has managed to get up the field quite nicely there as we come down towards the double right-hander. We're right up behind Fernando Alonso and George Russell here. You can see sliding all over the place as I just detest driving in these conditions with no traction control. And we may get Alonso here up the hill. Not quite down the inside we go into a short stint of downhill. And yes, we do get the position away. Fernando Alonso now battling away with Yuki Tsunoda behind us, who's actually doing quite well for himself at this race. And this is Charles Leclerc, 7 laps into the race, breaking down and pulling off to the side of the track, or then pulling straight back onto the racing line to get in everyone's way. There's me going past there, gaining the position. Not much has gone on in this Grand Prix, it must be said, since the start. We're on board now with Fernando Alonso, lap 15. This has been going on for 15 laps. The order has remained almost the same. Esteban Ocon has dropped out of the podium positions, though, and Fernando Alonso has finally got past us and moves up into P7 as Alex Albon spins out in turn 3 or 4, parks it on the apex and begins to ghost, and that is the safety car out as well. And what a godsend that was, because at this point the intermediate tyres were so wrecked from me sliding around and spinning the wheels up that I had to come into the pit lane. And, well, even if it's going to drop me back into, well, outside the top 10, I think, at this point, I'd rather do that than spend another second on these tyres, as I was literally spinning out every 5 seconds. Into the pit lane we go, and we're going to throw a set of wets on because we've been chatting to the engineer, and he is confirming that the rain is getting heavier. But the AI, it seems, have had no intention of coming into the pit lane, and they are staying out. Lance Stroll running at the back. He's ahead of Charles Leclerc, who retired. Stroll, I think, took damage earlier on, but I'm not sure what it was that caused that to happen. Anyway, we come out on lap 17. In 16th, safety car is coming in. As we make the charge down towards turn 1, we've got the temperatures open just to keep an eye on them. Down the inside of Joe Doohan, up the inside of Piastri into turn 1. The grip on these tyres is absolutely phenomenal compared to the previous laps that I've been driving around on these worn intermediates. And compared to the AI, it's absolutely godly. As we go to the left-hand side of Kevin Magnussen now. Down into the hairpin we go. Bottas up ahead. We're already up into P12. And the grip, as I say, is absolutely incredible as I ironically slide as I'm saying that. Up the hill. Can we find a way past Bottas here? There's a braking zone coming up that we like to take some people at. And yes, we do go down the inside as everyone kind of bunches up ahead of them. No one wanted to take any risks yet. Besides me, we've got everything to lose here as we go all over the back of Pierre Gasly. Another braking zone here, and we're up into the top 10 already after just 1 lap, 6 positions gained. Lando Norris, our former teammate in F1 22. Previously, while we were here, it was the other way round. We chased him down through the whole Grand Prix, couldn't catch him. And then at the end of the Grand Prix, we switched onto the intermediates and absolutely destroyed everyone at the end of the safety car. The reverse has happened now as the weather gets worse. We go alongside Lando Norris down towards turn 1. Yuki Tsunoda also there. We've got to watch out. We don't crash into him as we go wide into turn 1, but Norris doesn't have the grip to fight us, and we position ourselves ahead of him and continue onwards towards Yuki Tsunoda. If there's a bit of jumping around, I think that's just where my graphics card was just absolutely bricking itself, because the rain on this game in the settings that I'm using does make it very difficult for my 3060 to cope, and I do have to put a fan on my PC to try and get the heat away. But besides that, and chasing down Tsunoda, we're going to have a great opportunity here as he struggles up the hill, and we dive down the inside, and there's just absolutely nothing he can do to stop us. Rejoining then at the end of lap 19, Fernando Alonso on our left-hand side. This is revenge for him taking our position away just a few laps earlier. He's going to drag race us down to turn 1. If the AI have something, it's straight line speed with those tyres, but they just don't have enough through the corners, and even though we lock up and run wide, we are still alongside Alonso and position ourselves right ahead of him, right as we get into striking distance, I suppose, from Russell. And there's our race engineer just confirming that the full wets are indeed the tyre to be on, but the AI were too stubborn to make that decision. Russell sliding around. We're going to go to the outside of him. We may even get him before we go up the hill here. And yet we are ahead of the braking zone, and that is another position gained from one of our rivals. We rejoin later on, all over the back of Lewis Hamilton here. This is for P5. Into the braking zone we go, and up the hill we will begin. But Hamilton gets a poor traction out of the corner, and we get past him before we even get into the higher speed section of the circuit, where we would in fact have a disadvantage. You can see by the timer that he is closing in, but as soon as we hit this braking zone, he's going to drop away as we try not to throw it onto the grass and into the grandstand. But we're past. We've got 4 laps to go, 5 laps to go, and Esteban Ocon is next. This man was sitting on the front row at the start of this race. He's dropped to P4. He's still doing pretty good, but he's about to go down to P5 as we watch him sliding around, just unable to find the grip whatsoever. We're up the inside of him, and now we chase down Carlos Sainz as we go on board with the helicopter shot. Let's just see how much we close it up on the Ferrari here as we go through sector 2. Already massive distance closed there up to the back of the Ferrari through that long hairpin at the dip. And look at that, we're all over the rear wing of Carlos Sainz. On the brakes, we don't have the legs to go up the inside here, but look at this. We may be able to go around the outside here on the run down the hill, and the superior grip is just immense as we get past another one of our former teammates from F122. And fall in behind our greatest rival of all time, it's Sergio Perez, a man who has offered comedic value on every single F1 game season that we've had for the past while. Will he offer it once again as we come down towards turn 1? Perez is going to go to the inside. He locks up. He's trying to delay the inevitable. He knows what's going to happen. Christian Horner is on the radio threatening him and his position. He's going to give his seat to Daniel Ricciardo if he lets us pass. And we're going to close in on Perez, go to the right-hand side, and there's nothing he can do now because we have the race in line through this corner. He can Verstappen us off of the circuit, but he chooses not to. Sergio Perez tried his best. He's managed to give us a 1.6 second gap to close on Verstappen. But as we continue on with the race, you can see that we've still got 3 and a bit laps to go. We're already over the back of the other Red Bull. Max Verstappen loves this circuit, dominates here, and has dominated in previous Grand Prix. And we're going to go to the right-hand side alongside the Red Bull into the braking zone we go. He's later on the brakes than us, but we don't need to worry. He's got no grip, as you can see. He leaves the door open, and we go around the outside. And that is a P16 to P1 race in the space of a few minutes. We've still got 3 laps to go. And as we rejoin here, we're not even going to bother watching the entire lap 25 because you can see the distance we pulled over Max Verstappen already. Absolutely unbelievable. For the second time in a row, we've come to Brazil, and the weather, we've played it to our advantage. Previously, it was wet, so we switched to inters before the end of the race under a safety car, and we picked up the win. This time, we started on inters, switched to the wets after a safety car, and we will cross the line as a race winner in Brazil. We do a 360 to celebrate, and that will keep the championship alive for just a couple more races. There goes Max Verstappen flying past. He's fuming. We're not even trying to win the championship, yet we are still somehow able to win. And after that, what has got to be, as I said earlier, the most difficult race that I have ever done in a Formula 1 game. Driving in the wet is bad enough as it is, but with the traction control off and doing a wet race the first time in a long time with no traction control, and around Brazil, which is notoriously slippery with low speed corners, which are perfect for me to spin out, I'm particularly happy with myself. I could have turned the traction control on, but I refused because I would never get better if I did that, and this is the result. So in summary, overall, Max Verstappen did win out the weekend as he picked up the fastest lap earlier on and, of course, won the sprint race. But we picked up second, followed by Sergio Perez, Carlos Sainz, Esteban Ocon, Lewis Hamilton, George Russell, Fernando Alonso, Charles Leclerc, Yuki Tsunoda, and Pierre Gasly all picking up some points. Over to the Drivers' Championship, Max Verstappen just has one win in hand over us and is more than likely going to win pretty soon. But behind us, we have Carlos Sainz, Sergio Perez, Charles Leclerc, George Russell, Lewis Hamilton, Fernando Alonso, Esteban Ocon, and Lando Norris round out the top 10. Further down the order, we have Pierre Gasly, Alex Albon, Yuki Tsunoda, Valtteri Bottas, Lance Stroll, Oscar Piastri, joint 17th, Nico Hulkenberg, Joey Guan Yu, and Kevin Magnussen, and then Jack Doohan rounds out the final point scorers. He's followed by Nick De Vries and Logan Sargent. And finally, over to the Constructors' Championship, it's Red Bull at the top, ahead of Ferrari, Mercedes, then Slothz, Alpine just ahead of Aston Martin, the McLaren, Alfa Romeo, Williams, Alfa Tauri, and finally Haas. That's all for this race. We'll catch you next time for Las Vegas.